This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning to you and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio, and you are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Get your United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept books ready because we are continuing our discussion on politics, and Mr. Fuller will be able to answer your questions. Before we get started, let me say that I got word that the donations, we need just $100 more. We are at $4,000 now, so you have done good, and thank you for all those who have done that. We need just $100 more, and we're there, and I don't have to do this, at least for the remainder part of this year, so that's good. So thank you for all who have contributed. I don't have a list in front of me of the names, but you know who you are. If I do get that list, I will call your name out. Some people like that. Okay, but thank you for your donations in the second hour. We are on every Wednesday, live from 9 a.m. Eastern Time until 11 a.m. That's 6 a.m. in the Pacific, which they usually call around the 10 o'clock hour, which would be 7 their time. But thank you again for that. Okay, let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Good morning.
And how are you this Wednesday?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, we're going to go into politics, but before we do, somebody is calling right off the bat. So let's take that first before we go into the subject. Good morning, caller. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question for him?
Yes, sir. My question was, when white people are inevitably extinct and permanently extinct, could there possibly still be white supremacy?
Mr. Fuller?
No, you can't have white supremacy without white people, but then there's no reason, no logical reason for white people to be extinct. White people can contribute and have proven that they can contribute a whole lot to getting things done in the correct manner. What we need to eliminate is a political and religious philosophy called white supremacy that's designed to dominate and mistreat people based on color. But other than that, white people are people. No people should be extinct. No species of any kind should be extinct, because the presumption, logically speaking, should be that everything serves a purpose. Every creature serves a purpose. Even dust mites. I understand that dust mites can't be seen with the naked eye. They're so small, and what you call dust mites, they're little insects that are all over your body all the time, and they pick at your skin. That's what I've been told. And they eat dead skin, and you're covered with them all the time as a person. So these dust mites, you might say, oh, these are pests. These should be eliminated and whatnot. But they were created by whatever created, presumably, whatever created people, according to some religions anyway. If you have one creator, a lot of religions have several creators according to their religion. But you do know, or you have been told, or you have reason to believe that there are different things that are here. Leaves on trees, and the trees that the leaves are on, and elephants, and roaches, something that most people despise, but even roaches may serve a purpose. And antelope, rhinoceros, different types of fish and birds, they all may serve a purpose. Just because we don't know what the purpose is doesn't say that they shouldn't be here. And you should go around stamping them all out simply because they're here. People don't create anything. We only arrange what is already created by whatever creates creation. So you should have a great regard for anything that is in the universe and try to put it in the balance where it should be. That's where the problem is. People are out of balance, and creatures are out of balance. And people plus creatures themselves apparently have been great imbalances. In other words, we have done things to throw things out of balance. First of all, among people, we threw ourselves out of balance by our conduct with each other. I mean, killing each other and whatnot about nothing, and greed and all types of behavior that is non-constructive, and it's resulted in people not being the quality that they should be. And therefore the animals and the insects are not the quality that they should be in their behavior. They're the quality that they should be in what they are in essence, but in their behavior, nothing is in balance. And so we don't have the type of world that we should have. And so we should aim for being the type of creatures on this planet that we have been given that we ought to be. And that's put everything in the balance that it should be, so that everything works in harmony, one thing with another, one creature with another, and all the other inanimate objects, rocks, the clouds, dirt, all of these things, they matter. And we should have this regard for them.
All right.
I think that may answer that question.
Okay. All righty. Thank you so much, caller, for your call. You're listening to the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And if you have your United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept book, you know there are two, the Counter-Racist Code and then the Word Guide. We're going to open up the discussion today as we deal with politics on page 185. And Mr. Fuller, there were two questions on here, or two statements, and I'm going to read both of them and then have you respond to the statements. You said in the middle of page 185, you said, make a habit of answering all questions slowly, truthfully, and in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness. When criticized for so-called talking too much or taking too much time to answer a question correctly and constructively, respond by saying this. And you said, in order to answer your question correctly, I must think. For those that aren't familiar with the show and how the rhythm of the show works, could you explain that particular question?
What page is that on?
Page 185.
185.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Let me take a look at that myself.
Okay.
I can't remember everything that I write and
yes,
say.
Sir. Yes, sir.
I should, but it fails me. 185. And
yeah.
That's
making a
habit of answering all questions slowly,
yes,
truthfully,
mm-hmm.
and in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness. Sure, that's something that people should do. Answer all questions slowly, truthfully, and in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness. Now, if you think you can't do that, then you shouldn't even attempt to do it. And sometimes I fail, I think, according to my own evaluation, at that. Answering questions slowly and truthfully and in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness. I don't always know whether I'm doing that or not, but I try. That's what I'm trying to do, but I can't guarantee that I can do it. When criticized for so-called taking too much time to answer a question correctly and constructively, respond by saying, in order to answer your question correctly, I must think. And that would be my response. If I'm criticized, or if you're criticized, you might be in a court situation where, very aggressive lawyers trying to accuse you of something. Some prosecutor will say, it's taking you too long to answer the question. And you say, well, in order to answer the question correctly, sir, ma'am, I have to think. I prefer to think, if you will allow me to do some thinking before I answer the question, because I want to answer the question in a manner that will best result in things being done the way that they ought to be done according to your court of law. You might add something like that, because that's the reason. You want to answer slowly and correctly, and you want to do some thinking. You always want to think before you speak. According to the code itself, the entire code book, thought plus speech plus action. All right, that's the process. Think first, then speak, then act on the basis of what you thought about and what you spoke about, and try to do it correctly in a manner that will best result in a product called what? Justice.
Justice.
Which means what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated in this process, and also guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. In this case, or in many cases, the person that needs the most constructive help, this might be you. So you want to answer questions in that manner.
Okay.
Right now I hear sirens in the background, and I guess somebody's trying to give somebody some constructive help.
We hope so.
I hope so.
Yes, sir. Okay. And then right underneath that, very interesting, you said this, or you suggested this. Always tell the truth about what your ultimate goal is. Do not pretend that your ultimate goal is to replace white supremacy with justice when, in truth, your ultimate goal is something else. Some examples of ultimate goals are as follows. Could you elaborate on that?
Where is that now?
That's near the bottom, and at the bottom of page 185. I'll just continue down.
Oh, okay. Some examples of ultimate goals are as follows, right? Getting married. If that's what your ultimate goal is, your ultimate goal, in other words, the one thing that you think about more than anything else, one thing is on your mind, you should say that. You should make that clear. Don't pretend that you have some other goal when that is your goal. And it's too much pretense, and pretense brings about what? Confusion. And confusion brings about all kinds of conflict. Out of confusion comes conflict between people. That's the next thing right on the bill of fare. You got confusion, then you're going to have frustration. Frustration goes right after confusion. And then that you're going to lash out at something or somebody who's around you. So you don't want to send false messages of any kind. I mean, you don't want to show the incorrect intention, an intention of doing something and pretend that you are doing something else, that your intention is something else. Always let everybody know what your intentions are, right up front, right away. And you should always have the correct intentions. So one of them may be getting married. So you make that clear. The next one, it says here in the textbook, attracting attention to yourself. That might be your ultimate goal. You just want attention. That's why you change your hairdo or get another tattoo or decide you're going to drop your pants down if you're a male, and walk down the street, with them down around your ankles. That just might get you some attention. Might have some difficulty walking with them down around your ankles, but, that doesn't make any difference. You're getting attention. So if that's what you want people to do, look at you, make that clear. Look at me. Look at what I'm doing. Stop whatever you're doing and pay attention to me. I might be doing something great, and you might learn from it. So look at me. If that's your intention, make it clear. And if people start staring at you, don't get angry because they're staring, because you are deliberately trying to get people's attention. And that's what you want. And don't try to pretend that you're not, when that's exactly what you're doing. Now, if you're trying to do something else, then you can let people know that. Stop looking at me, but don't kill them because they're doing it. That's a part of what you call that old 1940s, 1930s black culture. Some people were doing that, and I read about an incident that happened just recently, this year, about a person said, "What you looking at me for?" And the person didn't even know what they were talking about. And the person who asked the question took out a gun and shot the person dead. And I had heard about things like that before, going way back, years. "What you looking at me for? You don't know me." And so that's a death sentence. I'll kill you because you looked at me. Now, regardless of what somebody thinks about it, that has been, on some occasions, a part of what you call black culture. What you looking at me for? If you're a black person, of course, you're a white person looking at you, that's a different thing, because the white person is not supposed to understand. But a black person is looking at you, you're supposed to kill them. According to some black people's way of thinking. That's a death sentence. You don't know me, man. What you keep looking at me for? You better look somewhere else. Now, you do it one more time, you ain't going to do nothing else ever.
Yes. Wow.
And so, I just wanted to make that point there. And then another one is traveling and meeting interesting people. If that's your ultimate goal, you should say so. Continuing. Finding personal, quote-unquote, love. If that's what you're seeking, you say, well, I want somebody to love me. That's why I'm, and I picked this person out. Well, let that person know that. I for whatever reason, I think that you ought to love me. And so you make that clear. And if the person says, well, do I have a reason to love you? Well, really, I'm not even considering that. In fact, I don't even want to talk to you about it. Now, that's the person's response, but that's the risk you have to take. But make your intentions clear. Your intentions when you interact with anybody should be made clear at all times. In order to do what? Eliminate what? Confusion. Okay, and the next one is having fun. Hey, I'm trying to get your attention. That's my ultimate goal. Well, you want my attention for what? In order that we get together and have some fun. Well, have fun doing what? And then you can continue on there. But you made it clear what your ultimate goal is, just to have fun. The next is showing off.
Wow.
Knowledge or possessions. Look what I got. I bought a brand new car. So I'm going to park right here in the middle of the highway so that everybody have to drive around me. I'm just going to stop right in the middle of the highway, all right, right on the dividing line. And so everybody coming in both directions would have to drive around me so that they can see me in my new car. Why? Because that's my ultimate goal. I've been working all my life to get this car. I've been working 3 jobs, and I finally got it. Top of the line, loaded down with everything. Speakers blaring. Okay, that's my ultimate goal in life. I have reached it, and I want everybody to know that. Well, so you let everybody know that. And if people ask you a question about, is that your ultimate goal and all like that, and it's the truth, tell them, yes. I don't want to go any further than this. I don't have any goals other than this. I don't want nothing other than this. So you reached it. You got it. And truth be told, that is the goal of some people. But if that is the case, let people know what your ultimate goal is. Okay. Then they know what your conduct is going to be and what you'll do. Because people will do just about anything to get to their ultimate goal. And everybody should reveal what that is.
Okay.
All right. I said showing off knowledge or possessions. Okay, killing people and or mistreating them. That's the ultimate goal of quite a few people. You know, a lot of people have militant minds, you know, and they say, hey, you know, I'm going to join the Army. Well, what did you join the Army for? Well, I want to kill people. I've been looking at people in video games and all like that. I want to do some of that stuff myself. See? But a lot of people will say, well, I want to defend my country and I want to do this. No, what you want to do is shoot somebody. And if that's the case, you should make it very clear that's what you want to do. You want to be able to be in a situation where you can kill people and get away with it. All right? And if that's the type of person you are, you should make that very, very clear. And stop trying to play like it has something to do with you love all these people out here that you don't even know because you say that they're members of your country. No. You're not telling the truth, those who think like that. If what you want to do is a license to kill, say that right from the beginning. Because why does everybody need to know that? Is because, you know, you might be in a situation where you are not around people, that you're supposed to be assigned to kill. So what might you do? You might just kill whoever's around you. And some people have done that, you know. They have already been on battlefronts and whatnot, but then when they come back from the battlefront and the years go by and they say, well, we're not going to be sending you to a battlefront no time soon, then they find somebody, well, hey, I'm a killer. I've always wanted to kill folks. You know, I want to spend my life killing people. So if I can't go where I can kill them and get away with it, I'm going to kill whoever's around me. And they proceed to do that. Well, everybody should know that up front, that you're that type of thinker. Okay? I just want to interject that.
Yes, sir.
The next is accumulating money, if that's your ultimate goal. Well, that could be the ultimate goal of a great number of people. And it is in places where money is required. You want to accumulate some money in order to be able to pay your bills. But then a lot of people just want to spend. Their ultimate goal is not what money will buy or, you know, or helping somebody with money. It's just accumulating money because they worship money. And some people think that way. And like I said before, whatever people have as an ultimate goal, they will do just about anything to get it. See, that's the main thing to keep in mind.
Yes,
You'll
sir.
know just about what a person will do when you find out what that person's ultimate goal is. And if it's to accumulate money, then you better grab hold to your purse, lady. All like that, because they just might do anything to get it.
Yes, sir.
All right? Okay, so now the next one is, and the last one, engaging in sexual intercourse with all of the people of one's choice. And that's the ultimate goal of a great number of people. But they'll never say that, most of them. Hey, I just want to jump from one bed to the next as long as I possibly can. That's my ultimate goal. Yeah, I'll get a good job and all like that, and I'll buy a car and all like that, and I'll help some people out, do something, for charity. I'll join a church. But really, deep down inside, it's what I really want to do. You know, in the case of many males, particularly males, I want to do is just go from one bedroom to the next, all up and down every block and every city and every town, and go from one bedroom to the next, every hotel room, one room to the next, and just jump right in bed with whoever is there. Sexual intercourse, that's my goal, non-stop, marathon, forever and ever and ever, until I collapse from doing it. Now, if that's your ultimate goal, make that clear, so that people won't think that you have some other intention, like getting married and settling down and raising children. No, if that's not your ultimate goal, don't pretend that it is.
All righty. Wow. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several that I will share with you. Super cool. Yeah, super cool. This is Libby and New Money. Now, all you have to do is to go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and then click on programs for the scheduled times, and you're on your way. TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic today is politics. And if you would like to become involved in the show, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766 or Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And I'm not going to get to it today, but on the next show or a show coming up, we will discuss that. We have about 3 minutes in this segment, so I'm not going to read the Gmails until the next segment. But let's do this. Mr. Fuller, on page 187, a question was raised by you, and the question was, or is, what is the correct thing to say when asked if racism, which is white supremacy, is, quote, individual, unquote, or institutional, quote, unquote?
Well, what you say to that is racism is both individual and institutional. This is what makes it so effective, so powerful. It's directed to each individual. In other words, you have to be, as an individual, you are a racist. And as a racist, if you're efficient, and it's just one form of racism that's functional, and that's the white supremacy, the racism that is white supremacy, enacted by a male or female who is a white supremacist, then they are, as individuals, a part of a codified system, a system that is dominant in the entire universe in all areas of activity over people of color. And so that's individual and institutional. So you say that racism is both individual and institutional. Racism is institutionalized in everything that is said and done or not said and done by every individual white person who participates in and or who does not effectively oppose the practice of racism, which is white supremacy. White supremacy is the only form of functional racism. There's no such thing as a black supremacist, because you can't have black supremacy and white supremacy in the same universe at the same time. That's impossible. Because sometimes people bring that up. Well, what about black supremacy? You got a lot of people walking around here saying that they are black supremacists. Well, they can say it, but they can't prove it. Because you can't have white supremacy and black supremacy in the same universe at the same time. That's impossible. So that's a false statement. The person can say that they believe in black supremacy, but they can't say that they really are a black supremacist.
Yeah.
In a system of white supremacy.
In the system of white supremacy. Okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, so check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic again this week and for the next few more weeks is and will be politics. And you can get involved with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766. Before we go to the Gmails, let me give a special thanks to Brother Delando, Sister Joy of the Grand Lux Hotel in Dallas, Texas, and also the staff and management of the Westin Galleria Hotel in Dallas, Texas. They treated me real well over the weekend. And a special shout out to the TSA people, transportation security people, they gave a brother a check so the brother didn't have to go through all that mess. Man, it was something else. But anyway, thank you for that. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you could call, and we're going to go to the Gmails here. Let me go. This is from one of our loyal listeners in Michigan, and she said, Mr. Fuller, you just said it will take each individual to do something to replace the system of racism, white supremacy with justice. Is each individual right now doing something unknowingly to keep the system in place? Are most people ignorant to their participation in maintaining the system of white supremacy? If yes, how? In what ways? Please explain this.
Oh, that was a long question. I didn't get it because there was something playing in the background too.
Okay, let me read it again. She says, you just said it will take each individual to do something to replace the system of racism, white supremacy with justice. Okay, is each individual right now doing something unknowingly to keep the system in place?
Oh, answer to that is yes. Yes, that's exactly why the system is still in place. We're all participants in supporting what is already in place. There's an old adage that says, everything nourishes what is strong already. And we're seeing symptoms of that in nature and whatnot. If there's a tree in the forest that's the biggest tree in the forest and needs a lot of nutrients, that tree will absorb many of the nutrients that would ordinarily go to the other trees. The other trees become weaker while the strongest tree becomes stronger. See, everything nourishes which is strong already. That's an old adage. Now, I'm not sure that that's always true because sometimes things, or it could be always true. You have to think about that. Like you should think about anything that anybody says that's supposed to be some type of gospel or some type of scientific truth. You question everything. But something that is strong already may become weak, and we have seen that too. Now, what was the process that something that was strong became weak? Because we have seen that. We see that with people. We see that with trees. We see that with rocks. We see that with everything. Something that is very, very strong for a very, very long time, then it becomes weak. That strong thing becomes weak. Now, why is that? It's because something makes it weak. And you might say, well, it could be that it just wore out. It made itself weak. Well, but it had to have a means by making itself weak. And so, but I've taken the position in counter-racist science, in counter-racist logic, that the weakness in the system of white supremacy is the wickedness that's in the system of white supremacy. And that since that's alien to the concept of justice, that it will have elements in it that is self-destructive. And the elements in making white supremacy self-destructive are the things that it feeds on, logically speaking. And what does white supremacy feed on? It feeds on the weaknesses of their victims, which means it feeds on me. I'm a victim of white supremacy. So I contribute to the strength of the white supremacists. But at the same time, since white supremacy is an alien idea to the concept of justice, and justice is imbalance, non-justice is imbalance between people being out of balance, and everything should be in balance because the universe kind of calls for things to be in balance. I mean, the sun has to move in a certain way. The moon has to behave in a certain way. When I say the sun moves, I mean the fire that the sun puts out, the energy that the sun puts out. It has to move in a certain way. in order for the weather to change and all like that. So, therefore, everything is interactive with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a poison that's in the conduct of people, and the poisonous is, there's a great poison in the conduct of people on the planet called the system of white supremacy, then the antidote to that poison is built right into that system itself.
Okay.
Which means, what would that antidote consist of? Well, one of the things it would consist of is what it feeds off of, and that is the victims of racism. So therefore, the victims of racism automatically will, on account of our conduct, like I've written a code, that's a reaction to the system of white supremacy. I shouldn't be reacting to white supremacy. That's not my ultimate purpose for being on the planet, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But then it turned out that way because white supremacy exists. And anything that's alien to the correct order of things will produce something that opposes that which is alien.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I hope the person understands what I'm saying. I said a whole lot to answer that question.
Okay. The caller from Michigan continues with this. She says, are most people ignorant to their participation in maintaining the system of white supremacy? If yes, then how and in what ways? Please explain this.
Yes. Most people, the logical conclusion is yes. We are ignorant. We are ignorant as to the existence of racism, a lot of us. And then some of us who are aware of it still don't know enough about how it works, what it is and how it works, to oppose it. You have to have knowledge and understanding to oppose something in an effective manner. And we don't understand how they do what they do. We're looking right at them. That's why the code refers to white people who practice racism as the greatest familiar mystery. You put that in capital letters. The greatest familiar mystery. You say, well, how can it be familiar and a mystery at the same time? It's because we're looking right at what the white supremacists do every day. Standing there looking right at them with all this awesome power that they exert over people of color. Looking right at them every day. Some of us in bed with them. We're in bed with white supremacists, having sexual intercourse, about as close as you can get. And still what? Don't know anything about them. Have absolutely no understanding of what you're looking at and who you're in bed with. None. Zero. Now that is weird, but it's also very, 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 very powerful. The most familiar mystery among non-white people of this planet is racist man and racist woman standing there every day, laying beside them, laying under them, laying on top of them, every day, and know absolutely nothing about how they do what they do.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about all white people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the white supremacists.
Okay.
We're looking at them every day and know absolutely nothing about them, and they know everything that there is to know about us that's worth knowing.
This is the white supremacist, right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We're talking about politics. Call in 1-877-932-9766 or Gmail me, as we just did, at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com, and I'll just stack up your Gmail with the others that I have stacked up. Mr. Fuller, at this point, we need to discuss briefly, if we can, your book, how we can get it, what's the latest, can we get it overseas, all the information that you need to do. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
You can get it in the so-called continental United States, and you can also get it in Canada by going to producejustice.com. That's like in the production of justice, producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook and an additional volume that's really a continuation of the basic textbook called a Counter-Racist Word Guide, because the use of words is very important in unraveling and eliminating the system of racism, because words are a great part of the glue that holds the system of white supremacy together. So that's an addition to the basic textbook. Go to producejustice.com. Now, they're still working on the United Kingdom part, meaning England. And that's what I've been told recently. And they said it will probably be the projected date now has been, the initial date was last December, but now the projected date is something like about a month and a half down the road.
Okay.
That's what I've been told.
Okay.
Producejustice.com.
All right, that's where we go. So do that. Producejustice.com. Okay, continuing in the discussion of politics, we are on page 188 now, the sixth area of people activity. This is very interesting, and I would like to navigate very slowly through this part of it. You suggested, this is on page 188, you said, do not tell people that you love them. Wait for them to tell you that they love you. When a white person uses the word, quote, love, unquote, ask him or her if he or she, quote, loves, end of quote, you, loves you. If he or she says, quote, yes, end of quote, ask why. If he or she says no, and that's in quotations, ask why not. Study the comments and answers that you receive. Can you explain that, please?
Well, when you're talking about love, different people have different ideas about what love is. Love is kicked around. That's a word that shouldn't be kicked around the way that is often used. I mean, we have all kind of television programs. We have TV shows. We have weddings. We have Valentine's Day. We have all kinds of songs talking about what? Love. But what is the actual definition of love? Well, love means different things to different people, apparently. And you even have things said, like sometimes people have done this. For example, a person standing before a judge in a court of law, and the judge asks a question, a logical question. Everything should be about logic. And the judge will say, well, why did you kill her? Or the prosecutor, or the defense lawyer, or whatever. The question is asked, why did you kill her, sir? And the answer sometimes is, I killed her because I loved her. So that raises a question about another word, hate, which is supposed to be the opposite of love. So if you kill the person because you loved them, like in the Bible, they say that in the old days they had what they call child sacrifice. You love your children, but you sacrifice your children by throwing them in the volcano. Some tribes are known to have done that, at least in ancient times, and somewhere probably in modern times. On account of their religion, called for them to do so. And they say, well, that's because I love my child and I love my God. And my God told me to sacrifice my child because my religion calls for that. But I love my child and I love my God. But I killed my child. So what? Killing is no big deal. I threw the child in the volcano because I loved the child. And, Your Honor, I killed her. I killed the woman that I loved because I did love her. I just loved her so much that I thought maybe she should go to a better place. Well, Your Honor just might say, well, if you kill the person because you loved them, what do you do with people that you hate? See, so what does that word love mean? So when anybody says that they love anybody, have them explain in detail exactly what that's supposed to mean in practical terms. Like, starting with one question, okay, what am I going to get out of your loving me? All right? Black people use that term all the time. I love black people. I love my black people. Oh, yeah? You do? How do you prove that you do? By doing what? I want you to enumerate all the things that you do to prove how much you, quote unquote, love all these black people in the world. Okay? Because you made a broad statement. Oh, you talking about love. I mean, I just love, I love black people. You hear a lot of black people say that all the time. Now, that calls for a lot of explaining.
Yes.
And a lot of performance. Not just words. What are the things that you do to prove, and just, doing one or two things or two or three things, when you enumerate those things, that may not prove anything at all.
Yes, sir.
So you want to go into details, a whole lot of details. I mean a ton of them, when people make statements like that.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, stop making the statement. Because for one thing, depending on what you're talking about, when you say love, I mean, my goodness, what does that really mean? I mean, I gotta keep reiterating that. And one thing you never do is ask a person for that. Don't ever ask a person. According to what? Logic. Never ask a person to love you. And never ask a person for an apology. And never, never, never ask a person for respect. Why? Logically speaking. Because these things are supposed to be given without asking. They just give to you. Somebody just hand it to you, whatever it's supposed to be. Love, an apology, and respect. And of course, there's only one person that can give you respect, and that is yourself. So that is a proposition that doesn't make sense at all. But since we're talking about the word love, we're not talking about respect. But I just threw that in there. I mean, those are three things you never do. Never ask for love, never ask for respect, and never ask for an apology. Those are three things you, under no circumstance, you ever ask anybody to apologize to you.
All righty. Okay.
There's an old song. I just want to say this about love.
Okay.
There's an old song. I told you that I loved you, now get out. That's the title of a song.
I never heard that one.
Yes, that's an old song. I told you that I loved you, now get out. See, so what does the word love really mean?
Okay. Wow. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number one. Go ahead. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller.
Morning.
Going back to the first call of this program, when you said that if white people were to go extinct, that would we still have white supremacy? Wouldn't we still have white supremacy, because that's the equivalent of a parent leaving a baby at home?
Mr. Fuller?
The baby doesn't know what to do.
Would we have white supremacy if a parent leaves a baby at home and doesn't know what to do?
I'm saying that's equivalent. That's like an analogy. A parent is leaving a baby at home. and the parent will not return?
White supremacy. That's doing away with white supremacy. I don't understand the question.
Okay, I'm saying if white people were to leave the planet, if there were not any more white people
on the planet,
still have white supremacy, because just like the white people are the parents in the system of white supremacy, and the non-white people are babies, the babies still wouldn't know what to do if the white people would leave.
Oh, well, if they would do that right now, if by some phenomenon all the white people would disappear from the planet, a lot of things would come to a standstill. I mean, a lot of factories, would just be sitting there. A lot of trains just wouldn't roll nowhere. I mean, lots of things would just come to an absolute standstill if white people suddenly disappeared for whatever reason from this planet. Why? Because we are under a system of white supremacy, and you're correct. The victims of racism are completely dependent on the white supremacists. That's what white supremacists means. We don't know anything or know how to do anything without them. They have taken away the ability. That's the first thing you do when you imprison people. You take away their ability to function as what you might call grown people. Being in prison is to be made into a child, and we are all prisoners of war. So you go right back to taking baby steps. You don't get beyond that. And you deal in baby things, like I often refer to the movie Shawshank Redemption. What was really important to the people at Shawshank? Seeing that they could get a picture on the wall, or maybe some playing cards, as Morgan Freeman said. You know, hey, he can get things. Red can get things for you. Get things like what? From the outside. Well, he might get some playing cards, with some naked pictures of naked women on them. Or he might get you a big poster. Or, last but not least, he can get you some cigarettes, which back in the old days was a big deal in a prison. Hey, he can get you some store-bought cigarettes. The packaged cigarettes, not to roll your own, like it used to be what you call bull durham tobacco and brown mule chewing tobacco and whatnot. But that was on the low register of what you call tobacco products. But if you can get some packaged cigarettes, ready roll, Lucky Strikes, Chesterfield, back in the days, that kind of depicted in the movie Shawshank Redemption, which was about a prison called Shawshank, and the conduct of the prisoners in there. So little things became a great big deal. Hey, I got 10 cigarettes and you only got 4. Ha ha ha. I'm the big man on the cell block for the day. And that's what the white supremacist system does in the greater sense to the non-white people on the planet, so that we run around the ghetto making a big deal, showing off to other black people the little trinkets and whatnot that we get, the little earrings and stuff like that. That's a big deal. A hairdo, another tattoo, that's all a big deal. That's a great big deal. That's the end of the world. We got everything under control now. They make children out of us, infants, babies, while they do what? They go all over the universe in rocket ships, taking over whole planets. And we're running around showing off to each other our little nickels and dimes.
Wow. Okay, well, when you hear the music, you know what that means. The first hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller has come to a close. So stay tuned for the second hour. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and tune in for the second hour of the compensatory concept.
Thanks for listening to the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, the world's greatest radio, and you are in touch with the Compensatory Concept. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. We are discussing now and for the next few more weeks the sixth area of people activity, which is going to be politics. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and I will try to get to your Gmails. Okay, make sure you have your copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. We are reading out of that book for those who do not have the book. It's simply a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. We are in the revised expanded edition. And Mr. Fuller, you said last week something about the previous copy was still valid. Could you explain it a little bit? Mr. Fuller?
Dated edition
Yeah.
that came out last year, 2016, is just an updated revision of what? Of the book that came out in 1984. And that's the one that's out in the form of a book form. Prior to that, there are papers that came out going back all the way to 1957 that are scattered here and about and under copyright register.
Okay.
I hear noises in the background.
Okay. We're working on that part there. Okay, go ahead now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the 1984 edition, it has a computer design on the cover.
Yes.
It's still valid. That book is still, those people who have that book need not throw it away and say that they don't have the latest edition. See, it's not, the textbook for victims of white supremacy is written as long as white supremacy exists.
Okay.
And it doesn't make any difference what form you have it in. All that material is still valid, either directly or indirectly. Why? Because the system of racism is still here. The system of white supremacy was here in 1984, and here it is 2017, and it is still the same system, working on the same principles. The white supremacists don't give up anything that works. And the system of white supremacy has been working for some time. It's the most successful religious and political operation that the world has ever known. There's no religious system or political system superior in performance.
Okay.
Superior in performance than the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
And so therefore, 1984, I mean, the book pertained to it then, which the goal was to help the individual person to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice, and that has not changed.
Okay.
And the new book, 2016, is just a little more in it.
Yeah, revised, expanded.
Yeah,
edition.
revised and expanded. That's what that means.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that it made the other book obsolete.
Okay, good. Got that clear. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Line number one. Okay, line number one. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question? And turn your radio down, please. Okay, go ahead.
I have radio. Okay, but yes, I just wanted to say, when I agree with it, Mr. Fuller, as usual, and I wanted to say when he said we have to look at all white people as white supremacist suspect or racist suspect.
Excuse me. There's a lot of background noise in there. Oh, okay, go ahead.
It's okay now?
Yeah, okay. It's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yes. Like I say, when Mr. Fuller says we have to look at all white people as white supremacist suspects, I was also thinking you have to look at non-white people that are black, non-white people as somewhat racist, suspect, conspirators. Because you have a lot of people of color that also help keep this system going too, because they're manipulated and puppets of the white supremacists. So, you still have to look at them as non-white white supremacist suspects to a degree.
Non-white.
I had a lot of.
Did you say non-white white supremacists?
Yes, I'm saying you have to look at non-white as white supremacist suspects.
Okay, suspects. Okay.
A lot of them report to white supremacists or let white supremacists know what we're about to do when we are trying to do things that are constructive and righteous.
Okay.
So you have to look at that also as a situation. Just like in Shawshank, he could have helped other prisoners, but he had to take care of himself because he don't know who he could trust in the long run. So
okay.
I just wanted to say that. That's all.
Okay. All right, Mr. Fuller, is that under VGQ, or did you have a response to that?
That comes under VGQ, but what I have written all through the book is that non-white people all participate in supporting the system of white supremacy. I support the system of white supremacy each and every breath that I take. Why? Because I am in the prison system. You can't have a prison system without prisoners, and I am the prisoner of the system of white supremacy. I mean, an empty prison is not a prison, but the prison isn't empty. The prison is full, and it's full of what? The prison system called the system of white supremacy. It makes prisoners. And who are the prisoners? Victims of white supremacy. And who are the victims of white supremacy? Non-white people. I'm classified as non-white. I am in the prison. I was born in prison. I automatically support the prison system. You can't be a prisoner and at the same time not support the prison system. The only way that you can not support the prison system is to not be a prisoner. So you don't have to suspect any non-white person, according to what? Logic and evidence of being a person who is supporting the system of racism when that is the only government on the planet. So if you're on the planet and you're a person of color, you are supporting the government that dictates what everybody does on the planet called Earth. And what dictates what everybody does on the planet called Earth is the system of white supremacy. So if you are walking around breathing on the system of white supremacy, or even if you are lying unconscious and you are breathing, and you're a person of color, you are supporting what is already in place, and that is the system of white supremacy itself. Just by being here. You don't have to be doing anything other than breathing. And even if you're dead, you're supporting the system, because the white supremacists say you got to be buried or something. It is not going to have you as a black person lying around being dead. I mean, your body is decomposing, so you're serving the system even when you're dead.
Okay.
Because somebody's got to come and bury you, and that somebody's going to be dictated to bury you. They're going to tell somebody, hey, you got to bury somebody. All right? Why? Because I said so. That's why. And that's the voice of the white supremacists. They are the alpha and omega of everything. There's no such thing as a non-white person being outside of the system of white supremacy. And being inside of the system of white supremacy and being subject to those white people who believe in white supremacy, you're automatically serving them.
Okay.
It's just a giant plantation, and you're on it. I'm on it. If you got color in your skin, there's no way around it. And so the only way around it now is you have to actually eliminate the system and replace it with what? A better system, and that would be justice.
That would be justice. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Line number 2? Okay, line number 2, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Bobby. This is Chico. I called last week from Trent.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I have a question for Mr. Neely Fuller. I would like to know what he thinks about the fact that in the United States and in Africa, those who are the most helpful to the system of white supremacy are members of secret societies. For example, in the United States, most of them are members of the Greek societies, the black, the so-called black fraternities, and in Africa, the majority of the presidents are Freemasons. And I would like to know what Mr. Neely Fuller has to say about that.
Mr. Fuller?
I didn't understand the question here again. Most of the times, I do not understand the questions. I have to ask for forgiveness for that.
Okay. Sir, could you repeat your question? What does Mr. Fuller think about what?
About the fact that most of the black people who are the most helpful to the system of white supremacy are members of secret societies. For example, in the United States, there are members of the Greek, the so-called black fraternities.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and in Africa, the presidents are members of the Freemasons lodges.
Okay.
And I would like to know what he has to say about that.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, did you understand that?
Yes, about so-called secret societies.
Greek societies, or fraternities and sororities and so forth. They seem to be really helping or perpetuating the system of racism, white supremacy.
Well, possibly so. I mean, but that's not a big deal. That's not anything to get choked up about, for the simple reason of the conversation we just had prior to this one. And that was what? If you are in the system of white supremacy any kind of way, meaning on the planet Earth, and you are a person of color, you are automatically subject to the system of white supremacy. And it doesn't make any difference about the little minor labels. Republican Party, Democratic Party, Communist Party, I don't care what you call it. There's only one government on the entire planet. And the fraternities and sororities, these are just labels on people's different activities. But the only real activity that's going on this planet that really counts is the system of white supremacy itself. One size fits all. And all the other little labels you put on things, I mean, Christianity and Islam and Moorish scientists and Judaism and Hinduism, the white supremacists care nothing about none of that. Why? Because if you got color in your skin, you are going to do what they say do. I don't care what fraternity you belong to, sorority you belong to, everything supports the system of white supremacy during the existence of white supremacy. Everything.
Okay.
There's no exceptions to that.
All right.
I don't care what kind of little secret anything anybody claims that they have. When the white supremacist steps up, all they ask is one question. Who in here has color? Over here. Do this. Do that. Do what I say do. Why? Because that's what a white supremacist does. And you say, well, I'm a member of a sorority, I'm a member of this, I'm a member of this secret society, I don't care who you are. You know what you are to me. And that's the N-word. And that's all that you ever are. I don't care what you call yourself. You can call yourself a Greek, you can call yourself what. If I say that you are the N-word, that's what you are. Get over here and do what I say. That's the only thing that I care about. And if you don't do it, I'll prove to you that you will do it in about 5 minutes or less. Why? Because I am supreme. That word carries all the weight that I need. Supreme means you can't have several supremacists. Just one supreme, and that supreme is white. If you are a person of color, get in line.
Wow. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's several more I'd like to share with you. One is called The Kingsman. The other one is called Front Street, and one more is Urban Flow. Now, all these shows are exclusive to Talktainment Radio, and all you have to do is go to the talktainmentradio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times. And, hey, while you're there, underneath it, click that donate button one more time so that we can have the second hour, which is now broadcast for the rest of the year, that second hour. So click donate button. Don't care how much you want to donate. We're almost there. We need $100 more. I'm sure we can get that today, and I don't have to do this no more. Anyway, click on the programs for the scheduled times of the talktainmentradio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic is politics in the system of racism and white supremacy. You must keep that in mind. We're talking about in the system of racism and white supremacy. I was going to go to a Gmail, but we may have a call here. Let's see. If not, then we will go to a Gmail. Let's see here. Okay, let's go to the Gmails. This comes from Dr. Javari. He says this, Mr. Fuller, and he did say that this is VGQ. He said, just one minor addition to Mr. Fuller's comment about the American obsession with death. It's not American. It's white. When whites dominate a society or culture, they force their lack of values onto other races through miseducation and the media. It's not us. It's them. Excessive violence comes from the disconnection to God and hatred of the feminine principle. The lack of dark melanin and calcified pineal gland already tells us that they have fallen out of favor with God. Being born white is a curse. It's like God just turned off your electricity or disconnected your phone. They have temporary power for a few more years, but no creator would allow them to stay in power forever, regardless of what we do. The definition of morbid is sickness, obsessed with death. When you are born without melanin, you are born dead. Whites are the walking dead. They are zombies. They are also parasites and vampires because they feed off the energy in the melanin of darker skinned people. 5 senses just keep you safe in the physical world. Melanated people need to use their 6th and 7th senses. Whites don't have them, so that makes them a weapon. Whites live only in the intellect and hence never get the whole picture of anything bring out of balance, and afraid of the feminine. That's why they are also open and latent homosexuals and should be avoided except for money. This comes from Dr. Javari under the VGQ, what he wrote. Mr. Fuller, you care to comment?
That comes under VGQ, strictly. Even the terminology that is used, America and whatnot, and talking about the melanin and whatnot. I heard everything that was said, and everybody who listened to what was said, take that under consideration. Everything that is said by anybody, that comes under VGQ. VGQ meaning Victims Guaranteed Qualification. If the person who made that statement is a victim of racism, then they are qualified to make that statement. That doesn't say that everybody agrees with it, because nobody's supposed, I always say nobody's supposed to agree with anything that I say. Nobody, white or non-white, is ever supposed to agree with anything that Neely Fuller says until they check it out and find out if it's valid or if it's some suggestion I make. Does it work? If I make a suggestion about trying something or saying something that I recommend, if it doesn't work, then you don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean? That's the way that works. I mean, Neely Fuller is no expert on racism. So therefore, since no one has been designated as being experts on racism except the racists themselves, then anything, VGQ means anything that anybody says about race, racism, and or counter-racism, if that person is a victim of racism, that person is qualified to make any statement that he or she chooses to make about race, racism, and or counter-racism. Counter-racism means make a suggestion about what to do about it.
Okay.
As a victim of racism, you are qualified to make suggestions of any kind about race, racism, or counter-racism. So that comes under VGQ. I cannot comment on somebody else's choices of how they look at racism.
Okay.
And but what my comments are already in the book. So anybody that calls into the program, see, I'm just making a broad statement now about that will cover everybody. Anybody that calls in on this program and says they have an analogy of what racism is and how it works and all like that, and who is a racist and who isn't, and all like that, that's all valid on this program, because that's what the codification is all about. Why? Because nobody has solved the race problem. See, the only person that can start criticizing what another person says, particularly another victim of racism, is if you have solved the race problem yourself. And so if you haven't solved it, that means you don't know everything. And so therefore, anybody can say anything about race, racism, or counter-racism if that person is a victim of racism. That should be a guarantee.
Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. What line are we? Number one, go ahead. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
All right. Hello, I would like to ask Mr. Fuller a question about the book. On the revised version on page 188, at the bottom, Mr. Fuller makes a statement, and it says, according to compensatory logic, love and justice are one and the same. And I was wondering, could I get more clarification on this statement?
What page was that?
It's on page 188.
At the bottom?
Correct.
No, that must be in the original 1984 edition.
It's in the revised edition.
On page 188?
Correct, under politics.
I'm looking.
I'm looking and I don't see it.
Well, you have a bold part, but right above the bold part, it says, according to compensatory logic, love and justice are one and the same.
On page 188.
Correct.
No, I don't see it.
It's right above you. It's right above the area where it says, question if it is not correct to praise people or to...
Oh, it's right above that.
It's correct.
Okay, where it says starts the system of white supremacy functions in such a manner. Is that what you're saying?
It's in a paragraph it's in the last paragraph. The paragraph starts with the system of white supremacy functions in such a manner that people are enticed or allowed to express romance.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at
paragraph. It says, according to compensatory logic, love and justice are
so what is the part that you're talking about?
Well, it's a statement about, according to compensatory logic, love and justice are one and the same.
Oh, yes, I see it now. Yes, that's true. That's in there, and that's exactly what it means. Love and justice are one and the same. That's the compensatory definition.
Page 187.
I talked about, yes, on page 188. Right, it's there, and that's exactly what I mean. I wrote exactly what I meant, and you're calling for an explanation of it.
Yes, if possible.
Okay, what is the definition, compensatory definition for justice? I'll repeat it again. Justice is what? The compensatory definition, not popular dictionary definitions, because this is the definition that I have in the textbook for victims of racism, and I think it'll stand the test of time. I don't think anybody will, if they examine it, the definition for justice, I don't think there's no way to get around it. If anybody comes up with a better one, I will adopt that better one, because I always want to go with the best possible thing to go with. because that's how to solve all problems. So I'll say justice is what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That is also the exact definition for love. The definition for love is the same as the definition for justice. I didn't say that earlier in the program, but that is the definition for love, the compensatory definition. It's the same, one and the same. You can't have love without justice, and you can't have justice without love. So love doesn't exist, because what? Justice doesn't exist. And why is it that justice doesn't exist on this planet among the people on this planet that we call Earth? Because you don't have justice, and you don't have people who are guaranteed that they won't be mistreated. You don't have that guarantee, and you don't have a guarantee that you'll get the help that you need. Nobody does. You don't have justice existing anywhere on the planet, and it hasn't existed anywhere in recorded history. To my knowledge, there's no record of justice ever being produced by anybody. A guarantee that nobody is mistreated, and a guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And that is the definition of love. So if you don't have justice, you don't have love, and you can't get it. You can get, as I say throughout the rest of the book, in different places. You can get affection, you can get caring, but this thing about you're going to get love, and you're going to get love without justice, when you ask somebody, which you never should do, ask somebody to love you, you're really asking for justice. If you use the word justice, you're doing the correct thing. If you say love, you're going to get confusion, because most people think of love as some type of thing about what you feel. And it is partial feeling, but it's got to be connected with action. And that's what I talked about in the earlier part of this program. I mean, what do you mean when you say you love somebody? I mean, that's got to be backed up by a whole bunch of action. And that action has got to consist of what? Guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated. Because you can't have love and you got somebody being mistreated. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. You got people being mistreated, and you say you got love, you got a loving society, that you belong to a loving people, that you are a loving person. No. You're making a false statement, because you're not. Why? Because you're not guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most is getting that most constructive help. That's why I said earlier in the program, we toss that word around, that word love around so much that actually it almost is on the verge of, needing to be banned. I mean, that's a word that you just don't use at all. Don't even consider it. Why? Because it's so confusing. It means nothing. Everybody just say, love, 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 love thy neighbor. Can't stand your neighbors. I mean, and don't believe in justice. That's why. Yeah, get married. I'll love you forever. And everybody standing there listening to that knows that ain't true. If they're really serious.
Yeah, I can vouch.
Because you can't have it in a world that's dominated by what? Non-justice. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Wow. Whew, that's deep. You said that was on page 188, because I'm looking at page 187.
It's on page 188, and right above it. Okay, go from the bottom line of page 188, and just count up to 4.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where you start.
I also see it on page 187, but I'm going to go ahead on it. Anyway, TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available, and download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have more of your interesting questions and some Gmails. All that and more coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you would like to get in with the conversation, we are discussing politics in the system of racism, white supremacy. You can by calling 1-877-932-9766. Before we go to the call, I must say this, Mr. Fuller, and to the brother that called in about that statement. It is found on both pages. I found out 187 and also on 188. I see now on 188 where it said, according to compensatory logic, love and justice are one and the same. That is on, as the brother stated, on page 188, and it is also under the note section on the bottom of page 187, according to compensatory logic. Love without justice does not and cannot exist. Love is justice, and justice is love. Both are one and the same. That was under the note section on page 187. And I say that because the one thing that we don't want is confusion. We that's just unacceptable. Anyway, so it's on both. So thank you, brother, for the call. Thank you for the answer, Mr. Fuller. Let's go to the phone line. Okay, line number one. Okay, line number one. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
I'm still learning, Neely Fuller. I'm calling to make a brief comment. One was, I'm from Brazilianized California, and I wanted to, as Mr. Fuller's used that term in the past, and wanted to ask him, since the black male collective has refused to have a spine and fight on behalf of the black so-called community or black females, what was his suggestion? And two, could he add the explanation he gave to me a long time ago about how other non-white males are still pursuing and the relationships with their own women, whereas black males have, as a collective, abandoned black females and the children? Could you speak on that, please, Mr. Fuller?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Well, black males lost control of everything once they became under the jurisdiction of racist man and racist woman. So once they were in prison, all prisoners are equal. So therefore, the black female cannot depend on the black male for anything. Why? Because he can't depend on himself for anything. He's a prisoner of war. All prisoners of war are equal, regardless of what their rank was before they became prisoners of war. If anybody that understands anything about being a war prisoner, you may have had some rank before the war began, and people saluted you or said that you were this and you were that. Why? Because you had the ability to have some power and get things done. Once you became a prisoner of war, even if you were a general in the old days, or a master of supplies, or politician, that was looked up to by everybody and all like that. Once you became a prisoner of war by an alien power, and the system of white supremacy is alien to their victims, then they got nothing. They got nothing going for them. So the black female who is looking for the black male to be some kind of leader and protector for herself and her offspring, give up on that. As long as the system of white supremacy exists, you can't depend on that at all. You can ask for some help, like one prisoner can ask another prisoner for some help. And here again, I use the prison movies like Shawshank. People came to Red and asked for help in getting things from the outside and all like that. But that was very limited. And the little help that you're going to get is very limited. And then the help is really not guaranteed, and by no means. Any help that you get that's guaranteed has got to come from one source, and that is the prison masters, whoever's master of the prison. And the system of white supremacy is the master of all of the non-white people on the planet. The system of white supremacy is the master of all of the non-white people on the planet. Now, you can expect all kinds of unreliable and non-constructive behavior by people who are prisoners of war in that artificial system, particularly if the war is a bogus war to start with, which the system of white supremacy is. It never should have existed, and all of the prisoners are prisoners, all of the people in the prison are prisoners of a system that never should have existed in the first place. So therefore, what does that mean in practical terms? You can't expect anything to work the way that it should. So therefore, a non-white female cannot depend on a non-white male for anything, and shouldn't look to him for anything. I mean, with reliability.
Well,
and,
Mr. Fuller,
and don't be disappointed because you shouldn't expect. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
I was going to ask you to clarify then why, under the non-white category, the black female has been abandoned en masse. Whereas if I look at the Hispanics, the Chinese, the Filipinos, the Middle Eastern, they still are having relationships with their women. They have not abandoned as a collective.
That's because the white supremacists set it up that way. See, they determine who's going to be with whom and under what circumstances. Right now, in this part of history, they have made that decision. Nothing happens without them making the decision. Black people don't make decisions about anything. We make individual decisions every day or in our minds about what we would like to have happen, but under the system of racism, whatever the system says we are going to be doing, where we are going to be working, how much money we're going to make, what our values are going to be, what styles we're going to have. See, and already the white supremacists have shown a lot of people who call themselves sometimes they don't call themselves that, but they're classified as what you call the yellow peril, the yellow people of the world. The white supremacists will say, well, hey, I won't change your male-female relations at this time. Why? Because my business doesn't call for it, where you happen to be. When it gets to the place where my business calls for that type of arrangement, that's the type of arrangement you will have. All you so-called Chinese men, or Asian males, rather, because you can't be men under my system if I'm a white supremacist, will be with white women when I choose for you to be with them. It's not going to happen until then, because I will influence you in such a way that that's what you want. You will no longer want the females that you now want. But right now, I let you do that because it doesn't disturb my business. If I let the black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere, just stick with their black females like they did in the old days when I had them on the plantation, I insisted that they do. See what I mean? Why? Because it was good for my business. So you have to think about the way that they're thinking, not the way that the victims are thinking.
Okay.
The way that the victims are thinking is, oh, this is happening to us and all that. It's happening to us because the white supremacists say it's going to happen. That's the only reason it happens. They tell us what to like and what not to like. And regardless of how we feel about it, they tell us what we're going to do and not do.
All righty.
So that's the way that works.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your call, caller. Okay. What line now? Line number 2? Okay, number 2. You are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead.
Good morning to you and Mr. Fuller, and thank you for taking my call. Mr. Einstein said that the differences separating the social classes are false. Mr. Einstein said in the last analysis, they rest on force. Now, Mr. Einstein said that himself. Now, to eliminate the system of white supremacy. Now, with all due respect to Brother Fuller, to eliminate such an evil empire without violence is just unreasonable. It has no basis in reality. And to make this point even more poignant, that's what they do. They don't go in and talk to nobody and take over their country. They go drop a 20-ton bomb on them. They drop a nuclear bomb on them. They send soldiers. They don't go in there and talk to them. So to change these psychopaths' conduct and what they doing, you going to talk to them? Now, real quick, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I ran down the 16th Street Baptist Church when they bombed it. I lived in a place, Birmingham got a lot of hills. I lived on a place called Dynamite Hill. This in the early 60s. Everybody know why they call it Dynamite Hill. White folks putting bombs around churches and houses. Nobody ever called that terrorists. Nobody ever called them inhumane. Nobody said, this is an atrocity. A white boy going to church on a Wednesday night, assassinate 9 black people. Nobody calls that terror. Atrocity, this is inhumane. This is what we are dealing with. Nobody want to recognize what we are really dealing with except a few other callers. Now, I suggest to people, I agree with Mr. Fuller. You're not going to change this system of white supremacy. Ain't nobody out there trying to change it. They've been fighting them people in Afghanistan for 2,000 years. Them people still fighting. But the Afghanistans are fighting for their land. They fighting to govern themselves. They are not fighting to change white supremacy. Vietnam is not fighting to change white supremacy because they do run the world like Mr. Fuller said. All you can do is try to control some piece of land where you might be, but we are not going to change that system. They jumped on the world like a cat on a rat.
All right.
And the world hasn't been able to come up. I suggest to people, if you want to save your life, you're not going to get away from white supremacy, but you might can go somewhere with your grandchildren or children and live your life out.
Okay, I got to wrap it up, brother.
Okay, but right here, right now,
I got to wrap it up.
They are going to eliminate us. Our time is up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, got to put that under VGQ. Mr. Fuller, we come to that time where I'm required to ask you about that book. So go ahead and explain about the book for the minute or two here.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook and an additional volume called The Word Guide, Counter-Racist Word Guide. And you can get either one or both books by going to producejustice.com. And also there's some other information there about overseas shipments into Canada, but not the UK as of this particular time.
Okay.
That's producejustice.com.
Right.
And the book is directed to the individual person who considers him or herself a victim of racism, with suggestions about what to do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Just download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic today and for the next few more weeks is politics in the system of racism and white supremacy. You are invited to call in at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby at Gmail. That's BOBBY at gmail.com. I can't guarantee that I will read it on the air today, but it will go into that large stack that I have. Mr. Fuller, a comment has come in concerning the comedian on HBO. I think it's Real Time with Bill Maher. He got in trouble last week for using the N-word and he's a white guy, and being comfortable in using the N-word. Just came right out. People want to know your thoughts on that, or him, and other people that feel comfortable, white people that feel comfortable in using the N-word, especially on national TV.
Well, those who feel comfortable in saying the N-word feel comfortable in saying the N-word. And then there are white people who don't feel comfortable in saying the N-word, but they say the N-word, and they are discomfortable when they say it, because people make them discomfortable when they say it. And then there are others that will say it regardless of who is comfortable or not comfortable, including themselves. They'll just say it anyway. And so you have different white people who will use that word like they use any word, like all people use any word, regardless of what the word is, and what their comfort level is determines by them, for whatever reason, they do or do not feel comfortable with the word. So if you ask about the word itself and what the compensatory code says about it, that's in the word guide. And the word used to disturb me until I thought about what the word means. And it took me some time to discover that the word didn't have a definition, because I was curious about how the word, because we called it the magic word at one time. You know, we say there's something magical about that word, that one word. Out of all the words in the English language, what's so magical about that word that it causes people to, you know, to do all sorts of things? And other people are very comfortable with the use of the word, like black people. All right, write it in songs and all like that, and be jumping up and grinning and laughing all the time they're using it. Okay, that's one level of comfort. And then other people listening to it will be uncomfortable, you know, including some white people. Listening to black people use the word, and they will be uncomfortable. So are we talking about comfort, or are we talking about what does the word really mean? What does it really mean in its true essence? And so I thought about this for several years, because it's a very serious word. Why? Because people say it's serious. So I want to know what's serious about the word and why people react to it the way that they do. And different people react different ways. So I came up with an analysis first. I looked at the word and looked it up in dictionaries and whatnot. And it took me a little while to notice something about the definitions, because everything, when you're talking about a word, is about definitions. So it said it was a derogatory term for a person of color. That's basically what all definitions of the word, when used in a dictionary, say. They have different variations of it, but they say it's derogatory for a person of color, a person of African descent, or a person who is Negroid, etc., etc., etc. Dictionary after dictionary after dictionary after dictionary after dictionary. Just look at stacks of them and look at the word and talk about the word in depth. Look for the origin of the word. Some people say it has a Spanish origin and all like that. And so I said, but what does the word mean in function that causes people to be upset or not be upset, like when black people use it? You know, sometimes they say they're doing it with means of affection. You know, hey, that's my end. You know, fill in the blank. You know, you are my end if you don't get no bigger. I've heard that expression. You are my N word if you don't get no bigger, and making it rhyme. You are my end if you don't get no bigger. Okay? And everybody laughs if they're black. Okay? Now, so what does the word really mean in essence? So I came to the conclusion that the dictionary definition, in most dictionaries, the key term in the definition is what? Derogatory. But here's what. It doesn't tell why. And that's why the word is so powerful. Why is it derogatory when applied to a person of color? It doesn't say. And that's why any word can be used that doesn't have a clear definition is a powerful word. They could say anything. A little while ago, I heard about a word called macaca. And a person says, oh, yeah, they call people macacas in certain parts of the world, meaning, you know, and refers to some dark people. And that's a derogatory term, you know, that they use. They say, well, what's the definition of a macaca? What is a macaca? Say, well, a macaca is a species of monkey. So actually you're calling a person a monkey. All right? But when you use the N-word, you're not calling a person a monkey. The minute that people found out that macaque was a species of monkey, it lost its power. Why? Because it had a definition, that's why. So I came up with a compensatory definition for the N-word that's in the book. I won't repeat it on there, that I say applies to non-white people, and when somebody calls me that, it works for me. That compensatory definition. When somebody calls me that word, the N-word, it actually works for me with that definition that I gave it. A compensatory definition, because it's a counter-racist definition. The power of the word all these years has been that the word, the so-called N-word, has no clarified definition, and that is what makes it powerful. They could have used any word. Stop and think about it. Any word. Doesn't make any difference what the word is. They could stop using the N-word and substitute a new word, just don't give it a definition, and then apply it to black people. Say this word only applies to people of color, but don't give it a definition. That word, that new word, will become instantly powerful, because that's what gives a word real power, when you put it out there and get people reacting to it, but it has no definition.
That's a pretty good explanation. I've never heard that before, but I like that. The final question is going to be, and I will get to you next week, Wavy One. I'm not going to take any more calls. So I will read this Gmail next week. But this question comes from on page 191 of the Revised Standard Edition. Mr. Fuller, you suggested, or actually asked a question. It says this: what are, this is in the middle of the page, what are some of the best correct, in parentheses, things to say in response to any remarks that a person makes when you believe that the person is trying to get you to engage in a conversation with him or her that is non-constructive in content or intent? That was in quote. That was in parentheses.
And what page is that?
191, right in the middle.
191, mm-hmm. Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are some of the best correct things to say? Right there. You see it?
Say one or more of the following. It is best to talk about truth, justice, and correctness. Now, these are actual quotes that you actually say.
Okay.
When you when a person is trying to talk to you and engage in a conversation that you think may be non-constructive. So you just say to that person, it is best to talk about truth, justice, and correctness. You just say that flat, right out in the middle of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can say, it is best to talk about the law of compensation. Or you can say, it is best to talk about doing something constructive. Or you can say, it is best to talk about patriotism, which means the same as producing justice. Or you can say, it is best to talk about the assignment, which, when you get into the conversation, will mean end in racism, white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can say it is counter-racism. Areas of economics, education, entertainment, labor, law. In other words, the 9 areas of activity.
Yes, sir.
Or you can say it is best to talk about producing the quality relationship and or producing universal man and universal woman. In fact, these are just suggestions. You can probably add to them. You can say, almost anything. But as long as it has something to do with something constructive. That's the key word in all of these responses. When people are trying to talk to you about something that is what? That is non-constructive, or you think is non-constructive.
Right.
You just simply say, well, I prefer to talk about something of constructive value.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that? And then you ask a question. Can mm-hmm. we do that?
And
because the person might say, well, I don't want to talk about nothing constructive. Then you might say, well, I'll just listen to you.
Okay, before we close out that segment, could you read that last line where it says the purpose of the aforementioned?
Where it says what? The purpose of the aforementioned is to make certain that every conversation is of constructive value and to bring an end to all talk that does not produce a constructive result.
Okay, we'll end the show right there. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.